realize I haven't made a video in a little while, a general video, or even a short video. But I guess there was a lot of stuff that went on this last week. But one of the big ones was that former Vice President Dick Cheney, who was Vice President under George W. Bush, had been Secretary of Defense under his dad, and then George the First, and then been, I think, Chief of Staff for President Ford back in the 70s, and had been a representative from Wyoming. He died at the age of 84, and he had a hell of a lot of heart issues his whole life, it seems like, from the time he was in his late 30s. And eventually he had a heart transplant in around 2012, 2013, something like that. So it extended his life longer than it would have otherwise, but he was what was called a conservative. What we have today are not conservatives. They are the radical right. And they have taken over the Republican Party and have drummed out everybody that is not basically white nationalist, racist, sexist sacks of shit, entitled sacks of shit, and groupies of that Agent Orange in the White House. But Cheney was of what was called a conservative Republican, and he was one of those PNAC types that wanted to have U.S. influence overseas, and of course all the talk about the Iraq War and all the other controversies during that Bush the Second two terms. And anyway, he was married to Lynn Cheney, who had a career in right-wing politics as well, and two daughters, one that had come out as lesbian, and then of course Liz Cheney, who's been blackballed by the MAGA types, and merely because she supports the Constitution and figured that crooked presidents of the United States should face consequences. And likewise, her father felt the same way. So things changed way dramatically from the time Bush II was in the White House, full of these PNAC types and evangelical types, to today when it's just run by wackos like Stephen Miller, and that awful Russell Vought, who's as evil as it gets. And then that dimwit J.D. Vance, who is Peter Thiel's bitch, basically. Everything that he's accomplished in life is because of Peter Thiel. But as bad a shape as Trump is in, there's a good chance this damn J.D. Vance, or whatever name he calls himself, will get in there. And God help us all. I'll tell you if that happens. But anyway, Cheney, I remember him. I saw him in person 2 times when I lived in Reno, Nevada, and Bush II was running for another term. And the first time I saw him, he and Lynn were in at Reno Sparks Convention Center. Now, I don't know, Lynn might have been there, might not have been there, but he definitely was there. And so he had given a speech earlier in the year, in the campaign season, and then the very day before the election day, you know, and that was all kind of shady shit that went down on Bush II's re-election, especially in Ohio. It was really shady shit. Anyway, that very night before, I think it was next to the last stop or the last stop, that Dick Cheney made. He was at Sparks High School and gave a speech. And Lynn was there then, and a couple of their grandkids, because I have pictures of them that I took. I was there. And actually Lynn was at the other one too. Yeah, she was. Because I noted at the time in my blog, which I've had forever, I noted how tiny she was. He wasn't very tall. He was probably around 5'8", maybe, if that. But she was not even 5 feet tall. She was just really tiny. But at that time, I thought that Cheney was kind of resigned to getting beat. That his ticket was going to get beaten. And all of a sudden, the next damn day, I went to that Grand Sierra resort because the Democratic Party was having... oh, I know, they were going to have a party in Washoe County. And all of a sudden, Florida went for Bush. And of course, we all know about Bush v. Gore and all that. But then Ohio was real shady, and I thought right then they cheated like hell. But, you know, I'm almost nostalgic for Dick Cheney compared to this shit we've got now. And it's really deteriorating. And Trump himself is deteriorating by the day. And there's been a lot of commentary about it. Not a hell of a lot by the so-called mainstream media, but by people like Lawrence O'Donnell and some of the podcasters and stuff. They like Midas Touch and Adam Mockler and a few others, which I regularly listen to. I don't listen to everything they do, but I'm a regular listener. But they noted just how out of it Trump seems to be. And of course, I think I noted at one time that Trump, not at one time, but Trump's dad had suffered from Alzheimer's. But Alzheimer's isn't known to be hereditary. But, and we've got to be careful not to be ageist, because I've shitted on people who bitched about Biden. But here, there's definitely some fucked up shit. And it's getting more obvious by the day. He's falling asleep. And then there was that photograph taken yesterday or the day before. I think it was yesterday morning. And they had an Oval Office press conference or something. And about the pharmaceuticals, I guess. The diet pill Ozempic or something, it seems like. And somebody collapsed on the floor and had a medical episode, and old Dr. Oz was there to help save this guy and help him out. And a bunch of others were trying to revive this patient, or this guy. And here old Trump was sitting there, he was standing there like absolutely clueless of what was going on. Or he didn't give a shit. And maybe he doesn't give a shit, because he sure as hell doesn't give a shit about all these people whose health insurance is jeopardized. He doesn't give a shit about the SNAP thing. And some states did go ahead and pay full benefits. Oregon did, because one of my relatives got the full benefit yesterday. California and a few other states, they did go ahead and fully fund it. But Trump's whining about it. He thinks everything's his personal bank account. He's a fucking goddamn mobster. Just like the goddamn fools that backed him. The billionaire people that are backing him, and that goddamn Musk. Now they're talking like he's going to be the world's first trillionaire. What the hell? When one person has more goddamn money, whether it's real or it's paper wealth, real wealth or paper wealth, has more goddamn money than the GNP of many countries in the world, there's something seriously fucked up. But anyway, you know, we're all paying that. We're all paying for all these people these few people having all the money. But of course, that eventually they're gonna die, because they can't feed off of people. These parasites can't do it anymore. If they just take everything and take and take and take, there's nothing. It's all meaningless. But they don't give a shit. You know, they're trying to compete with each other to see who can rip off people the most. So anyway, yeah, that Tesla deal, I thought that was ridiculous. I'll tell you, that's a kiss of death of Tesla. But anyway, so Trump went, or that this judge said that Trump had to pay this out because the money was already there to pay for November. But Trump says, we can't afford it, blah, 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 blah. All this kind of shit. And he thinks that, everything's his personal piggy bank. And so he appealed it. He lost on appeal. And then he appealed again to the Supreme Court. And then Justice Jackson, one of the so-called liberals on the court, she put a temporary 48-hour stay. And it was based on stay on the benefits. And that was based on technicalities, procedure, all that shit. And as some noted, this is a way to stave off the full court from fucking around and starving people. I'm telling you, it's a goddamn mess. It's a goddamn shit mess. And sorry about my swearing, but I'm not sorry. But anyway, a lot of people were asking, what in the hell is going on with Marjorie Taylor Greene? She was this MAGA representative, and, she was all in on Trump. And then all of a sudden, she's sounding like Bernie Sanders. And, of course, a lot of people are speculating, well, she's got higher political ambitions, like maybe the U.S. Senate. Lots of luck that she wins again, if she runs against Ossoff. Because she isn't going to, or Ossoff, whatever his name is, she is not going to win against him. I think that seat's pretty secure. Or maybe she's had a change of whatever. I know she's pissed off over the ACA subsidies because members of her family depend on those subsidies. And she's not happy that the Republicans are fucking around with that. And they're going to close, and they decide to close the Congress or close the House and not take any action on anything and trying to play chicken with the Democrats, and the Democrats are not buying it. And they're trying to play with SNAP benefits. That's what Trump is trying to do. And this ACA shit, this whole thing has nothing to do with ACA. This is all about retribution by Trump, a mentally fucked up individual, because he was mad that Barack Obama roasted him back in 2011 at that Washington press corps dinner. He was pissed off and he vowed revenge. That's why he, quote unquote, ran a joke campaign for president. It was basically a joke campaign until Jeff Zucker got hold of it and then created a Frankenstein, Jeff Zucker of CNN. And I've never heard him ever take responsibility for the absolute monster he's created. And it's going to take years to get this situation rectified. But anyway, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she's just really disgusted with that goddamn Mike Johnson, who's a worthless sack of shit. There's the worst three people in D.C. I don't count old Trump at all. But the worst, because he's a puppet, the worst three people in D.C. are Mike Johnson, Steve Miller, and Russell Vogt. If those three were run out of town on a rail, this country could start to heal and get back on track. If those three assholes, and of course, it goes without saying, old J.D. Vance and his mentor, Teal, the country would be a hell of a lot better off. But Johnson just lies through his teeth. I can't stand him. That sanctimonious, smarmy shit. And he's lying. Constantly lying. And of course, Greene was pressuring him to disclose what kind of health care plan that the Republicans have. He kept promising that they had a plan, just like Trump would promise he had a plan. They don't have a plan. They want to kick people off with pre-existing conditions and kill them. They don't give a shit. It's all these bums. They call people on SNAP bums, welfare bums. But the big bums are the ones, the real bums, not the big bums. But because people who are poor are not. The bums are the ones that are the goddamn billionaires and the people who are buying these politicians off just so they can get more tax breaks. And never forget, the only thing that the GOP really stands for at bottom and has since the Reagan years is tax cuts for the rich. That's primarily their bread and butter. For most of them. But you have these religious nuts that want to create theocracy because they think Jesus will come back. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. And it's a grift with them. But anyhow, so anyway, that's basically it. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos. I noted Midas Touch. I noted Adam Mockler, I think he's got a big future ahead of him. He's only like 23 years old. But I think he's got a really big political future. If he wants it. But, I like the true crime channels. And my favorite of those is Criminally Listed. That's the one out of Canada. And he posts about once a week, sometimes more, of these cases. And there are several true crime channels that I watch that aren't, from news organizations, that are regular series. Like A&E or 48 Hours or Dateline. None of those, but by, just content creators. But there's some that I watch, like Criminal Core and Southern Girl Crime Stories, Merc, and Heavy Case Files. Those are regular ones that I watch. But Criminally Listed has almost 1 million subscribers. And, that's probably the best known of them. And then, I've really gotten to where I've gotten addicted to this one channel. And there are several channels that are devoted to disasters. But I really like Morbid Midnight. That one is really good. It's even better researched than Criminally Listed. 2 different topics, 2 different niches. But Morbid Midnight is really good because he focuses on a lot on mountaineering, the mountaineering tragedies and the extreme sports tragedies. These damn fools that take unnecessary risks and they die and all this, and they're fascinating. They're morbid. They're fascinatingly morbid. And this guy is really good. And I see someday, if nothing happens to him, I see him hitting 1 million one of these days. 1 million subscribers or more. Because he's got some really great content. And I listen a lot to a channel called, sorry about the dry throat, Bourbon Bougie. She's getting more and more prominence, but she focuses a lot on relationships and also current events. And she's a black woman, and she looks at things from maybe that perspective, but she's got a lot of good content there. A lot of it's, and she's got a good sense of humor. She's got a good delivery about her, and that channel is going to grow too. And so that's kind of a mini shout out. Another one that I listen to is YV Edit, and she calls herself a feminist, And she has that down pretty good. Although some of what she says, well, some could accuse her of a bit of hypocrisy because she's married. And she married at 19. What in the hell is wrong with people? Who the hell even does that? And, you know, and of course her husband is not one of them, like the 99.9% that are just hopelessly assholish. So somehow hers is the exception. How the hell she knows that, or how he's going to be when they turn 50, I don't know. So there's a little bit of a hypocrisy there when you're talking all this stuff that women shouldn't partner with men to be better off when you're partnering with men, and in the most traditional way possible. I mean, you know, Bourbon Bougie also is married too, but she didn't marry at 19. She didn't do that. She did that a lot later. But both of them are entertaining in their own way. Both of them are. And, you know, and then there were a couple of them. And I wish I could think of the one. There was one aviation. The aviation channels were also really good. But the one called the Flight Channel had something like 1.5 million subscribers. Was really good content for years. But sadly, that guy that ran it, he took his own life back in August. And then there was another one, the last name was Bay, B-E-Y, and he was in the airline industry, and he had aviation videos. But sadly, he was killed in an auto crash back in May, I think it was, in the Philippines. So you never know. These people could have all this great content, and then next thing you know, you don't hear from them ever again. And then you find out these people die, and they both were young guys. So you never know. You never ever know. But anyway, I thought I would just talk about some of the rambly stuff, some of the things that have come across that I thought it was worth commenting. It'll be interesting to see where Marjorie Taylor Greene ends up. But obviously she's trying to distance herself from that piece of shit in the White House. She's trying to draw that because she's got political ambitions. She isn't ever going to be president. There's no way a woman's ever going to get elected anytime soon, if ever, because of the way men are. Because most of them, like it or not, as a group, they're politically stupid. And you've got millions of people that think that women can't lead, even though they can, and they do. And they always have. So anyway, on that note, I've run off at the mouth too long, but that is all I have to say today.